How you doing, everyone? We thank you all for coming. We are going to continue on with Matthew's 5:44. Okay, this is a good study. It's a good study on ahab, love, in contrast to those who treat us in a disrespectful, in a demeaning, in a hindering way. How do we respond to this? Because this is what Yeshua is talking about. He says, Chabal Shelim Ra Tekat Ra. Not to recompense evil with evil. This is the beginning of the subject. This is the point that he is making. How to respond to those who are antagonistic towards us. All right? Do we respond with the same antagonism? No. Okay? We don't want to go beyond the jawbone of righteousness in our response. Because the most important thing is to stay in a fellowship, in an agreement with the will of the Father. This is the most important thing. Okay? And we have to, at some point in our experience, okay, get this deeply rooted within us. That the most important thing is to stay in a fellowship, in an agreement with the will of Yahuwah. Anything else won't do. Because there is nothing else that is relevant other than the will of Yahuwah. It is in his will that we have our purification. It is in his will that we become pure as he is pure. All right? This is what we need to center ourselves on and get away from all the rhetorical, emotionalism of Western religion. We want to be logical. We want to be rational. And we want to implement our faith, the action of truth, all right, in a logical and rational way, and not allow our emotions to overwhelm us in many cases, in most cases. I went through years of being emotionally overwhelmed, but it says that we walk not by sight, we walk not by sight, but by emunah, okay? The support of Yahweh's will through the actions of obedience to his truth. That's what faith is. Faith without works is dead. This is dead as the body without the spirit. This is taught in the scripture. And we have to, at some point in our spiritual experience, recognize that we receive an instruction book to take instructions and to follow those instructions, and not the rhetorical, emotional doctrines that has kept us in an unfruitful state. All right? I left the Christian church because it was unfruitful. The teaching didn't bring forth the fruits of the Spirit. Okay? It was a cultural righteousness. A righteousness based upon a culture that claimed itself to be supreme above all other cultures. But it was not connected to Torah. Matter of fact, in this culture, they abolished Torah. And then they give you their own cultural dynamics, laws, and morality that in most cases, does not line up with the righteous requirements of Torah. That type of righteousness we want to reject. We want to reject any type of righteousness based upon a supremacist doctrine of the flesh. And we want to convert to the righteousness of the Spirit. For Elohim is spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. All right? This being understood, let us continue on with the teachings of Yeshua. Not my teachings, but the teachings of Yeshua that he has given us and that we should follow. I don't have a teaching of my own. I only learn how to teach the word, how to teach the prophecy of the word, the moral instruction of the word, and to convey it to those who have willing ears. But it says here, Ve'ani Omar, Ve'ani Yo Omar Lechem Or Bechem. ve'ashu tobin li shonechem ve'mich ishchem ve'cha okay, that's a tall. Tefillah lehu ve shavil rodefim ve lo chasichim. Okay, everybody got that? All right. Tefillah lehu, prayer. Okay. Tefillah. 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 Okay? Without the additives and the suffix. Tefillah. Tefillah. Or tefil. Okay? Y'all got that? Yeah. Yeah, that's the root here. Okay? And then when you add on like a suffix, the definite article and the conjunctive article, in many cases the sound of the word changes. Okay, so this would be ha-tif fal lehu. See that? That's the sareh. That's the patah. Fila lehu. Okay, so it's the same word, prayer. All right, but thanks for that. Yeah. Okay, so that you understand. All right. But he says in translation, also I am saying to you, those opposing you, also to them do them good. And also those afflicting you and those annoying you. Do good to them. Okay. Now in the last lesson, he said, those that are hating you, let me get it here. It's ve'achaba le'or habeka ve'te shina li shoneka. Okay. And love those loving you and hate those hating you, or we use a lesser meaning of that word, rejecting. Those that are loving you, love them. Those that are rejecting you, reject them. This is a standard, okay? Because we don't want to get contaminated with their hatred. We don't want to get contaminated with the hatred that produces the rejection, the enmity that produces the rejection, the antagonism that produces the rejection, okay? So I'm translating this in this effect, that hate produces rejection and opposition towards you, that those that are in this emotional content, you need to reject. That means get them out of your atmosphere. Get them out of your fellowship. Don't assimilate into their quality of hatred, antagonism, all right? Because your purpose is to be what? Pure as he is pure. This is what the scriptures teach us. So now Yeshua is adding to this. He's saying, okay, this is how you reject. This is how you respond to those that are hating you, those that are rejecting you, those that are at enmity with you. Don't respond in their hatred. No, we don't want to do that, because now we're causing an impurity to leaven within us. So we want to reject them. That is to move them out the way. Get them back. Get them out of our spiritual, our social, our cultural atmosphere. For the purpose of being holy. Not for the purpose of hating them. Not for the purpose of saying that I'm better than them or any other type of supremacist sick thinking. But for the sake of purifying ourselves as he is pure. This is what Paul said. Righteousness cannot have fellowship with unrighteousness. Okay? What is light cannot have fellowship with what is darkness. So you cannot embrace and fellowship with those that are living in a condition of antagonism and hatred. This is opposed to the will of Elohim. But what Yeshua tells us to do, he says also, adding to this, not negating what he just said, but adding to this, they also, and in addition to this, I am saying to you, those opposing you, also do them good in the plural. That can be do them good works, good actions. Okay? That doesn't mean that you bow your head to them and submit to their will. I think we got that very confused in our experience. That those that are hating us, the means of keeping in the will of Elohim is that we bow down to their will. No, we don't bow down to any will except the will of the Father. This is the only will that we bow down to. But we still walk in a emotional condition that inspire good towards all men, even those that oppose us. See, this is Torah teaching, and I'm going to show you that this is Torah teaching in a second. But let's finish this scripture. It says, also those afflicting you and annoying you, do them good. Respond to them in a way that is within the quality of divine good. Don't go across that borderline, that jawbone of righteousness. Don't pass that boundary, but do them good. Okay? And what are goods? Goods are to treat them in a way that is redemptive. Treat them in peace. Treat them in a way that does not, how can I put it, that does not empower their hatred. See, when you return hatred with hatred, you empowering hatred. But when you return peace towards hatred, all right, that's cool. Praise Yah. Or however response that we can produce that is good. We have to evaluate ourselves. Don't get caught up into this emotionalism. All right? Somebody say, hey, nigga, you just gone now. You just out of the picture. Okay? Are you a nigga? No, you're not. That's something that came out of the sick mind of white supremacy in order to degrade you and to bring you into an inferior mode of thinking concerning yourself. Because if you think that you and the way of your life is inferior, only thing you can do is abandon it and take up on their way. We don't want to take on the way of the oppressor. We don't want to take on the way of sick ideals that we know have produced moral denigration and degradation within the human soul. And I can say for a fact that the only thing that has been produced from this race ideology of white supremacy or black supremacy, okay? But we have been afflicted by the sickness of white supremacy that keeps us sick until this day, because we keep responding to it or trying to deal with them on their terms, which is hatred, antagonism, okay? Or assimilating a doctrine in another face to destroy the doctrine in their face. So now you want a black Jesus on the wall. But Elohim is spirit. We don't want no image on the wall. Not the image of mortal man to worship or to idolize as a deity. We don't want no image. Elohim is spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and truth. Okay, get that in your head. We transcend the race doctrine. We don't function in the realm of it. We transcend it. We reject it. Every element of it. Every minuscule of it. We reject it. Why? Because it is opposed to the redemption of our souls. It is opposed to the will of the Father. It is opposed to the quality of divine love that emanates from the Father. Okay? And then he goes on and says, ha tif la lehul, and also pray for them because of their bashabil rodafechim. because of their taunting you. Okay? Velo chasichim, and hindering you. Okay? You should pray for them. Those that are taunting you. Those that are trying to taunt you into their emotional and mental state. See, the reason people taunt you and persecute you is to destroy who you are. To cause you to submit to a way that is appropriate to their condition. You see what I'm saying? So they bring you down. See, this is the way that hatred functions. It demonizes everything that's not in their box. And so you grow up thinking everything that's African is the devil. Everything Chinese is the devil. Everything outside of this box is the devil. And if you believe that, then you're going to stay in that box. And every time somebody tries to bring you the truth outside of the terminology of this diabolical culture, you reject it because the first association that you have with it is that it's the devil. Oh, it's a good plan and it's working. Because you can't get people out of the box of supremacist religious order terminology. Some people can't even say Yeshua. They so scared. They think it's the devil. Because somebody falsely convinced them that the name Jesus was the name of the Messiah. But it's not. Are you going to hell because you say Jesus? I don't know. I'm not the judge. There's only one judge and lawgiver. But I do know historically that his name was Yeshua or Yeshua. Depending if you're speaking in the Hebrew or in the Aramaic. All right? And I'm not going to go through that because that's an elementary circle that many of us are stuck in. The letter J and all the other introductorial things that we need to know to understand some of the errors that we have been in. Okay? But I do know this, is that Yeshua instructs us to pray for those that are taunting us and that are hindering us, that are putting up roadblocks, that are obscuring our way, or through constant persecution. Remember, anytime you see after the first consonant, and there's a Vav with the Olam, first consonant Vav with the Olam, that is a active participle, meaning a continual action unto fulfillment. What do they want to fulfill? By taunting you, by hindering you. They want to either minimize and negate you, your position, to make you feel inferior, to make you bow your head, okay, so that they can convert you to their way, to their will, to their subjugation, so that you can be dependent upon them and not upon your Creator, Yahuwah Elohim. And anyone who has this mentality, beyond the hemisphere of race, anyone within your community, your neighbor, anyone who has this mentality to taunt and to hinder you from progressing unto the total will of Yahweh, you need to reject them. But pray for them. Pray that they might enter into the light of truth, that they can be delivered from their slavery. Pray for them that they might be able to share in the redemption. Pray for them that they might be able to share in the power by which they are able to fulfill the righteous standard of Torah. That they might enter into relationship with the Father. Also I am saying to you, those opposing you, do unto them good. Okay? But let's put it into perspective now. Yeshua is not saying don't reject them. Okay? He's just saying that don't conform to their ways. See, because it's already instructed to us by Yeshua that, remember now what was taught to the Eastern ones, to those that was in reception. Love those that love you, but reject those that reject you. Don't fellowship with them. Because righteousness have no fellowship with unrighteousness. Darkness hath no fellowship with light. The temple of Elohim has no fellowship with idols. Come out from among them, and touch not that which is defiled. Touch means to come into a fellowship with. Okay? We don't need the doctrine of demons. You reject it. But at the same time, you do good to them. That means that as Moshe instructed in Torah, this is just Torah teaching. Don't let nobody fool you to think that Yeshua was teaching anything other than Torah. Don't let nobody fool you to think that the New Testament writings is nothing more than teachings and instructions and definitives of Torah. Because in Shemut, or Exodus 23, 4 and 5, Moses basically taught the same thing. Yeshua is just defining it even a little bit more. Okay? Its intent. It says in Shemut 23, 4 and 5, if you meet your enemy, ox and his ass going astray, you shall surely bring it back to him. See, that's doing good. Here's a man who is your enemy, and you see his ox or his ass going astray. You bring it back to him. You restore it to him. See, that's doing good. Okay, but he's still your enemy. Okay? He's still your enemy. You still reject the premises on which he is founded upon, the emotional content from which he lives from. Okay? Remember that. But do good to him. All right? And it continues to say, and if you see the ass of him that hated you lying under his burden, and wouldest forbear to help him, you shall surely help with him. Okay? So you want to lighten the load. You see your enemy's ass, and this goes into a deeper element, but we're going to stay with the practical. Lying under a load. He's so burdened down that it can't move anymore. It says you shall help him. Yes, you shall surely help him. Okay? So, this is doing good to those that oppose you. This is taught in the Torah. This is Torah. It's not New Testament. But Yeshua is teaching and defining it even more. Okay? In more unisolated terms. Okay? Those opposing you, also to them do good. And also those afflicting you and annoying you, do good. But don't integrate into their emotional condition. Don't assimilate their character or their ways of doing things. Okay? Envy not your oppressor, nor take upon any of his ways. But do good to them. Okay? See, this is what Moshe and Yeshua is teaching. And Moshe also taught that we do not respond in the same mental or emotional or spiritual capacity as even those that have oppressed us. We don't treat the stranger like Misraim treated us, who were strangers in their land. Okay? And we don't go into nobody else's land and then genocide them and kill them all up, and then afterwards we want to be friends with them. Afterwards, follow our way. We don't want to follow your way. Your way has produced the genocide and the massacre of our people. Why would I want to follow your way? Okay? But it says also, thou shalt not oppress a stranger. For you know the heart of a stranger, seeing ye were strangers in the land of Mizraim. This is teachings of the Torah that is in line with teachings of Yeshua HaMashiach. You just got to stop and separate yourself from the antagonism of your oppressor and stop interpreting the word based upon an emotional content of antagonism. We don't want to do that. What we want to do is what is taught in Torah and is taught in the Basarah of Yeshua. And pray for them because of their taunting you and hindering you. See, this is a reason to pray for them, because they are so ignorant of what is good and true, what is righteous, that they see it as evil. Understand, those who function in the light of darkness see good as evil and evil as good. They can't help but to taunt you because they see you as evil. They can't help but to taunt you or to oppose you because they think your progress will in some way disempower them. They can't see you no other way. They are slaves to the darkness of their mind. So Yeshua says, what? Ta tefillah lehu. Tefillah lehu. Pray for them. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Tefillah lehu. From the word tefillah, prayer. Okay? Well, we got the, as I said, the additives on there, and many times it changed the sound of the word. Okay? Especially when you have here, and it's always, in many cases, a sareh. Tefillah, the feminine kamat hey drop. Okay? And we add the lamid, sareh, va, and the dagish in the center. So the sound changes, but it's the same word as said before. All right? So we want to pray for them. Why? Because the free man has the ability to free the slave. The slave don't have the ability to free the slave. You understand? When you have been made free through the obedience of truth, you have the ability now to do things they can't do because they're slaves. He that sins is a slave of sin. They oppose you because they are ontologically constricted in a box and a perception that sees everything out of their box of darkness as evil. Someone, I was talking to a pastor, and she said, well, you know, you seem to be angry. I'm not angry. That's not why people are pushed back from what I speak. You can say the word voodoo. All of a sudden you think about witch doctors and all kind of stuff. But the word voodoo just means spirit. Just like ruach. Just like upepo. Just like rojo. And other words of other languages. You can say zadik, which means righteousness. Every Hebrew say, oh yeah, zadik. You say theo, all of a sudden your mind goes to, oh, you worshiping other gods. Theo just means righteousness. Ma'at just means righteousness, balance. Okay, right actions. All right? But when you, in the supremacist culture, everything of other cultures, they associate with evil. And so when somebody say Theo, you automatically condemn that person as evil because you're in this myopic box of supremacist thinking and can't see that you're the one in evil. Because Paul taught that those who are impure in mind sees all things as impure. You understand? But when Paul went into that Greek land, he didn't condemn them. He didn't talk about them. He said, one of your poets said, you know, we live, breathe in him. We're talking about the unknown Theos. We're talking about the unknown deity. These other deities is dead. Okay? But you got a little truth here. See, he tried to find something that they had that was good, through which he could preach the Basarah, the good news. He didn't go in there, you dig what I'm saying, condemning them and making them feel inferior. No, he wanted to lift them up into a higher perception. So he said, look, this here, the unknown God. Okay? Yes. I'm gonna teach, I'm gonna use this here cultural ideology that you have, this unknown God. And it was one of your poets that said, in him we live, move, and have our being. See, he didn't tear down their culture. He used a truthful ideal within their culture to teach the good news. See, that's where we want to come from. We want to assert the divine mind. The divine mind comes to empower. The infernal mind comes to disempower, to hinder, to afflict, to taunt, and to oppose. See, people say, well, brother, why you don't, criticize Obama? Don't need to. He's the president of the United States. Every president of the United States started wars. They bombed countries. He's just doing what any other president does. What you thought? He was going to be president of the new African nation? No, he's president of the United States of America. When he became president, he took upon their agenda. And he swore that he would support the interest of America. And if the interest of America is to go over there and bomb a country and kill its leader, then that's what he's going to do. Because he's the president of the United States of America, not the new African nation. Now, if a person of a new African nation was president, if we had one, which we will never do, I gave up on that pipeline dream a long time ago. Okay? I just learned how to function in the oppressive system that I am in, because we're too cowardly to rise up and to demand anything, realistically demand anything that relates to true ideal of freedom. We just want new cars, new houses, TV, and some junk food. Let's just be real about it. Let's stop faking the game. Okay? We want the riches of the enemy. Okay? Let's stop faking the game. We are not going to challenge the enemy system. The same system that killed over 500 million Africans, that enslaved 30 or 40 million. And millions for 400 years. All we want is the riches of the system. We envy them. And we have chosen their ways. And that's why we're in the moral degradation that we're in. And no pretty words can contradict the reality that we are in. I am against unrighteousness. And the unrighteous actions that was implemented against African American people, Native Americans, and people in color by the white supremacist system, I am against that system. And I say that publicly, and I say that with all sincerity. Because I believe that system is against the will of the Father. No other reason. I believe that system is against the will of the Father. But within that system, I'm going to do good. And I'm going to pray for those that are captive by the system, in the system, and those that are leaders within them. I'm going to pray for them. But I'm not going to submit to your will. I'm not going to submit to your morality. I'm not going to submit to the social science and the ideal that you have placed upon the people while they're walking around, glowing in the glory of materiality and narcissism, individualism. I'm not going to flow in that. I believe in community. I believe in the system that Elohim has created, and I will believe it unto death. Okay? I will believe in the order of Yahuwah. I do not believe in the religion of white supremacy, the three gods, the man on the wall, on the cross. I don't believe in this system. Okay? I don't fellowship with it. And it's cutting more branches now than I've ever cut before. Because I've found that there's a lot of people who say they don't believe in the system, but they maintain the same moral culture as the system. I got to let you go. But I also have a responsibility to Yahweh that even though I reject you, those that oppose the will of Yahweh within me, I have to also do them good. That when I see my enemy ass or donkey stray away, I'm going to return it back to you. I'm going to do good to you. Okay? That when you're afflicting me with insults, negations, and minimization, my response is that I'm going to pray for you. That you can that you yourself can experience the great light that I have experienced in understanding the supreme will of Elohim. All right? I'm going to continue praying that I become delivered out of the emotional affliction that keeps us in bondage to hatred, that keeps us in bondage to antagonism and opposition of what is good. If that means separating from my community in order to maintain relationship with the Father, Yahuwah Elohim El Israel, then that's what I'll do. And that's what you need to do. And that's what you need to do. And that's what everyone who hears this message needs to do. You have no loyalty on the basis of color, only on the basis of righteousness. And if you're not supporting righteousness, I'm going to reject. And you ought to reject anything that is not contained within the jawbone of righteousness. Okay, I've said enough on this teaching. All right? Yeshua says it was taught to those of the eastern ones, those who were in a state of Gan Hayden, to love those that are loving you and to reject those that are rejecting you. And Yeshua and Moshe adds on to that also, to those that are opposing you, do good to them. Okay? If you see your enemy's ass or donkey going astray, return it back to them. Same thing. Different terminology, but same thing. Okay? All right. And also pray for them because if they're taunting you and hindering you. So you got to get above emotionally. That's that emotional purification that I talk about so much through the merismosis and the laboring in the spirit of pushing these negative qualities out of our life. Something you have to experience that I can't teach. But the purification process that one must go through until his emotional content no longer has a reaction to those hindering and taunting, afflicting, okay, and annoying. I haven't got there 100% myself. Now, I'm not boasting that I've achieved it, but where I was 10 years ago, I'm glad to be where I'm at now. Okay. But where I was 10 years ago, it was not within the will of my responses was not within the will of Elohim. For the most part. I did good sometimes, but most time I probably just give you a punch in the jaw. Okay. But I've continued in my pursuit, and I find now that I can walk away from taunting and hindering, at least on the 80% radius. And I'm going for that other 20% purification so that I can have a 100% level of walking through the mist of those that oppose and that taunt and that do the little tricks and the conneries. Oh yeah, we're growing. We're growing, and in growing, we're rejecting those who are of emotional content of unrighteousness. But we will do them good, and we will pray for them as Yeshua HaMashiach taught us. So I hope this lesson is a benefit to you. I got responses on the other lessons that people were very empowered by that lesson. And this is part 2, and we're going to continue on until we finish chapter 5, and then we're going to move on into some other teaching for you here and for those that come, so that we can deal with some more controversial scriptures that people use to confuse. Okay, people use to minimize and negate. I really want to deal with that. It's been on my heart to deal with it. So we will do that after we finish chapter 5, and then we'll go to chapter 6. Probably after we leave this city, we'll start back on chapter 6 of Matthew. We want to get to the end of chapter 7, the basic doctrine that Yeshua taught, related to our spiritual development and how we should react within a wicked world that we live in. So, anybody have any questions? Okay. No? Okay, we thank those that come. We give praise to Yahweh. We never beg. Our ministry here is basically over. And so we, are not really promoting the ministry or the teachings here. We're really phasing out, and we're going to be moving on into hopefully more productive soil to plant the seeds of truth, to grow that garden, that Gan Eden, that Yahweh wills. This was not the place, but even in what appears to be failure, we believe that the seeds that was planted here will at some point bring forth good. Indiana has not been very good to us here, but it has been a challenge, and I think we pretty much met the challenge, and we have made it through without adding blemishes to our lives. So we give praise to Yahweh, and we again thank those that do come when they come, in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, Ben HaElohim Adon HaSabah. Shalom, shalom, shalom.